What's up guys, this is Yasin. So today we're going to be going over my ban list predictions, so the cards that I think are going to get banned, limited, semi-limited, unlimited, or most likely are just going to dodge the ban list overall. I've got like 20 something cards here, not all of them will be getting touched. This is just like a ban list prediction, not necessarily a wish list. However, I do plan on making a wishlist video as soon as we get the ban list, because obviously right now there's kind of no purpose. Otherwise, it'll be way too big. And honestly, I'll be honest with you, I really don't see how this ban list is going to be big. It's probably going to be like a 5 or 7 cards on the ban list, and that's it. That's all. There's no reason for Konami to make this really big. But yeah, let's get right into it. As soon as you smash the like and subscribe button, and also check out my blue as in Crystron spreadsheet. Okay, the first card is Link Decoder. Yes, okay. A lot of people are saying that this card should be getting banned, and I understand why, right? Because it makes Malice a really broken deck. If you have Dormouse and a Bystial monster, then you pretty much get to play through like an Imperm on your Dormouse, and if you have like Shishira Cat and a Bystial, you get to play really well. But obviously you could also go into like El Mirage, so even if you ban this card, then the deck kind of still works. I mean, for like Lingerable and stuff like that, but you're not gonna have the extra Link 1 body, so you might actually lose to like a second Imperm. I don't really think that this is a card that necessarily will be getting banned this format, just because the OCG still has it. I know it's a really shit argument, so I think it's just going to be untouched just because I can't really see that happening, but I do understand the reasoning behind banning this card, and I think if this card gets banned, there's actually the argument to unban Mathmech Circular to 1. And the reason why I'm saying Circular could actually go back to 1 is because if we ban Link Decoder, that is an indirect nerf to Mathmech, and the OCG already has Mathmech Circular, and it's not really doing much of anything. You can even play a Mathmech engine in Razio, so if we start hitting the consistency of Razio, they can start looking into some other options, like Shark, for example, even though I don't really believe in that. You can also play with like the new Heraldic Bees that are coming out in Duelist, Alliance Insight, or the other, so hold on a second, Magistus, there we go. Yeah, that's actually a really good one. I think that's one of the best ones. Or you can just play like more like starters, like obviously if the limit bonfire and stuff like that, you can start playing 7 Tachyon. I'm going to go over that in detail later on. Yeah, when it comes to Mathmech, obviously you can play this in a bunch of other decks. I mean, the engine, it's a really small engine, so you can play this in Adignister, which is getting new support in Alliance Insight. Makes sense, right? Alliance Insight, AI, Adignister. So that's the main reasoning why I'm saying that unbanning Mathmech Circular now would make sense if we were to ban Link Decoder. So these kind of go hand to hand, I guess you can say, but I don't really see one getting touched without the other getting unbanned, for example. But I don't really see both of these things happening at the exact same time. So just to be very conservative and safe, I'm just gonna put them in untouched, unfortunately. I still think that Mathmech Circular will remain banned for the next couple of years, even though it would be really nice to have this card back. I'm definitely not biased as a Mathmech player. Anyways, this card, I think X-Razio will most likely just get limited, because the deck is still very playable even with only one single copy of X-Razio. And what I like a lot about limiting X-Razio from a business perspective is that now you are really punished for playing Pot of Desires, which means that you have to start looking into more consistency cards. Yeah, sure, there's Small World, but that card is strictly worse than 7 Tachyon and 7th Ascension, which means that you're better off buying the new cards, and obviously that's good for Konami. That means more sales. And it's the exact same argument for Bonfire, right? It's just that Bonfire is like way more obvious because this is a normal spell card that searches either your Ice or your X. And yeah, this really is just a monster, but it's like the most fair way to really hurt the power level and consistency level of the deck without being like too unfair on it. With that being said, I really want to mention that this is a ban list prediction video and not a wish list. I don't even want necessarily these cards getting hit. I think that banning Duo Drive is extremely fair and reasonable and could happen. Probably won't though, just because, I mean, I think it's too late for them to just ban a Razil card. The deck has only been out for 3 months, which is not too much. Like if we look back at 2020, was it 4? Yeah, actually just last year, Snake Eye format. The Snake Eye deck actually existed for quite a while before getting actual direct hits, but at first it was just like Baron and Borreload Savage Dragon Band, and that's it. That's also as indirect hits, like for the extra deck and stuff like that. That's the reason why maybe Abyss Dweller could get banned, but not necessarily like Razil Detonator and Duo Drive. But yeah, we could even limit Duo Drive and limit the Detonator. That would be, you know, good against the pure version, but against the Fiendsmith version, it would do nothing unless you also start hitting the Fiendsmith cards. So there's a lot of ways about it. Like, this is not necessarily set in stones. Perhaps Bonfire has to get limited because, again, they have to push 7 Tachyon, so that has to happen. But X-Razio, maybe yes, maybe no. maybe it could get semi-limited alongside Ice Raziel. We never know. And by the way, yeah, this is the reason why you should not skip all the way until the end of the video just to see like the position of everything. Otherwise, you're gonna miss out on all of my explanations, which is basically like the main part of this video. I mean, it's the most important thing about it. It doesn't matter where like my cards are. It really changes nothing because there's always a caveat. There's always something to like explain when I go like through all these cards. But yeah, Dormouse I think is a card that actually will be getting directly touched, just because if it gets semi-limited, it doesn't really change like too much to the deck. It's just like a very small consistency nerf, but it is the strongest one-card combo by a significant margin, so maybe they might start playing Silent Mining and stuff like that. And if we start limiting Bystial monsters as well, that would definitely hurt quite a lot, but it would still allow the deck to remain powerful. I mean, again, the power level of the deck is still kind of like the same for the most part. I mean, it really is the same, but the resilience maybe, and you know, the grind game might get a little worse, and I think that's kind of fair because Malice also deserves to get hit, not on the same level as Raziel perhaps, but still, just because for this deck you have the argument of, oh yeah, but the side deck cards against it are blowouts like Lancia, Nialis, Chaos Hunter, etc., whereas against Raziel the side deck cards are not that much of a blowout against it. Like there's a huge difference between resolving Lancia against this deck and resolving Ultimate Slayer against this deck. Like, this deck does not care about one Ultimate Slayer because there's ways to beat it, and you can also have, like, the Star Leech so that you can't even target and stuff like that. Whereas, this, yeah, if you Lancia this deck, it literally just passes turn. Yeah, anyways, next up is Unchained Soul of Sharvara. I don't really think this card is necessarily gonna get semi-limited just because there is no, like, new Unchained support, but I think it could happen. But then again, this is a BANLIST prediction video, not a wish list, so yeah, it's either between semi-limited and untouched. Would definitely make a lot of sense, because even if you make this card go back to 2, it wouldn't really do much of anything. Fiendsmith Engraver, I think, is for sure getting limited. Absolutely same thing with Fiendsmith Tract. There is no reason to keep these cards at 3, because the Fiendsmith engine already did everything it had to do. It's been around for almost a year now. That's a little too long. Usually engines, if they're like way too broken, they usually die off after a year or like a little less than that. So yeah, I think it's time for them to say goodbye. And I think yeah, they've been good enough for like the majority of their existence. At first it was like Beatrice Turbo into like, you know, more extenders for a Snake Eye deck and stuff like that, and then it became like super broken in Ubel because of Aerial Eater, and then now it's just like Caesar Turbo, Fiendsmith in Paradise, Graveyard Effect, Recursion, etc., blah blah blah, and you know, Chaos Angel, DS Array, Agnum Day, OTKs and stuff. So yeah, it's a great engine, and a lot of people like it. A lot of people think it's fair. It's just that Caesar access is a little too broken, but limiting these cards would not obviously have too much of an impact on that. You can still play the engine very well. Alternatively, there is also a world in which we ban Moon of the Close Sky, or ban like Fabled Luri, or ban Fiendsmith Requiem. If we ban Moon of the Close Sky or Luri, it doesn't really change like all that much. I mean, banning Moon of the Close Sky would actually change nothing for certain decks, whereas banning, let's say, Fabled Luri would definitely be really bad, because now Fiendsmith Tract is basically unplayable. With that being said, you can still play Fiendsmith Sanct that you can search off of Engraver, but it's strictly worse than Fiendsmith Tract, that's for sure, because now you gotta control like no monsters, and you're also locked under only being able to attack with like your Fiend monsters, if I recall correctly. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on the Fiendsmith cards. But also, I think the reason why this is very realistic is because this is also what happened in the OCG. So again, do keep that in mind. Same thing with like Sharvara. It's just not necessarily a card that I can really see being stuck at 1 on the ban list. So you know what? Just to make some people happy, I'm just gonna put this back to 2. I do think it's a risk that I'm willing to take just to have this card here, because again, it's not necessarily what I want, but what I think will happen. Crossout Designator, I really want this card to go to 1, and honestly, I do believe that the odds are getting very high. They really are, because this card is at 1 in the OCG, so again, we're just gonna be getting one step closer to getting, I mean, we're gonna be getting even closer to the OCG, which is what the OCG wants us to do, right? They want us to be like them, because in case you didn't know, I'm pretty sure Konami of the TCG, they have to get their decisions approved by Konami of the OCG, and then they can say, oh yeah, you can hit these cards, oh no, you can't do that, blah blah blah. But if it's always like the same restrictions as them, then it's always gonna pass. And if we have like one crossout, then it most likely will pass. So if someone in, you know, the TCG department of Konami wants to limit Crossout Designator, that's something that I can actually see happening. And Crossout Designator is a very cancerous card at the current moment. Hand traps are needed, unfortunately, to stop your opponent because board breakers are very inefficient. They're really weak against Malice, and they're not great, or at least they're not good enough against Raziel. Even though they're not bad, there's still a decent amount of board breakers that are good. Like Ultimate Slayer, Metal Chonus, these cards are fantastic. They're not good enough on their own, but Crossout Designator, it makes it so that a bunch of the cards on your deck are useless. And yeah, it's really frustrating when you have like one hand trap, you get cross-outed, and then like your second hand trap just doesn't do enough because your opponent's deck is already way too resilient. So it really feels like you need more than half of your hand sometimes to be hand traps, and you're just hand looping yourself back to back. Especially when your opponent also has like a Call by the Grave or Talent. It's really frustrating. But yeah, this one I think is the most realistic going first blowout that will most likely be getting hit on the ban list. And I think it will happen. This is not just a wish list. It's actually a prediction. I'm smelling it. I don't know why. This video is probably going to age very poorly. Anyways, Chicken Game, I can actually see getting semi-limited because this card got unbanned relatively recently. And we do have some new White Forest support. And in case you're wondering, oh, well, what's the correlation between White Forest and Chicken Game? Well, in the OCG, this is the only real competitive deck that unironically plays Chicken Game, just because, you know, it's an upstart goblin that you can also pitch for your White Forest effects. But also, the deck is about to be getting a new field spell in Alliance Insight, which means that you can now start playing set rotation in your White Forest deck. And obviously with Chicken Game, that makes it a little better. And also, a reason why I've suggested semi-limiting and then unlimiting Chicken Game is because in the OCG, this card is a 3, and they still only choose to play 1. So that is a very strong argument to semi-limit Chicken Game when you can play 3 and you still only play 1. Might as well unlimit or whatever, semi-limit the card. It doesn't change jack shit, it doesn't have a negative impact on the game, and it's something I can genuinely see happening because, again, they will have to eventually push White Forest if they want people to play the deck, and this is one of their ways of doing so. Bystial Baldric alongside Bystial Jewesworm are pretty much in the exact same boat. I mean, in the OCG, every single Bystial monster other than Saruanir is at 1. So there's also a world in which we might ban Magnamut, but I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think it's necessarily something that has to happen. Potentially Lubellion should maybe also be included in the list. But the reason why it's not there is because I think Lubellion, despite the fact that it's really powerful, it's way more inherently fair because it is not a hand trap. It's not a card that immediately gets you advantage by banishing a Light or Dark from your opponent's graveyard or your own graveyard and Malice. That's even more relevant. On top of generating a monster on the field that usually does something really relevant. I can definitely see Jewesworm at the very least getting limited because this card is one heck of a beast at the current moment. Baldric, maybe less so. Maybe Baldric will remain a 3, and the reason why I'm saying this is because when we're going to be getting Orchist in Battles of Legend Monster Mayhem in June, if I recall correctly, Orchist is a deck that loses a lot to Bystial Baldric, and I mean a lot. And the reason for that is because usually for Baldric to be good, you need Baldric, and then you need like another Light or Dark monster on the field. But with Orchist, when they go Orchist Mech Knight Girsu give you a token, and then send like Harp Horror, you go Baldric, banish the Harp Horror, and then they go into like a Link 1, and then you can go Baldric effect, tribute the token that you just gave me, banish the Link 1. So that's actually kind of broken. It's really insane that you can do this with Bystial Baldric. The fact that it's always going to be there, and if it's a 3, then it's going to be really bad for Orchist players. So maybe this might be... I don't know. I'm really not sure, but I do think it's still going to get limited just because it's still a card that Malice is playing. But I don't know. I'm really back and forth on this one. You guys let me know how you feel about Bystial Baldric. Terraforming is a really interesting one. I kind of want the card to get banned, but then again, I don't think it's necessarily going to happen because in the OCG, the card is not banned. I hate recycling this frustrating argument over and over, but unfortunately, you know, like, yeah, sure, we can like thrust into Terraforming to get us a field spell. That's pretty nice. But the card is still a one-of, and for the most part, you're not really searching the card, so I think it's a one-of that will keep existing just so that every single time we get a new field spell, this card is always going to help them out a little bit, so I don't really see a reason why Konami would want to ban Terraforming, other than the fact that us as a player base are kind of fed up with this card, but a lot of people are not. This card is fair for a lot of decks. I don't necessarily think it's a card that has to go right away. I'm really indifferent when it comes to Terraforming. I don't really feel too much animosity towards it. If this card continues on living, it's fine. And if this card dies off, it is also fine. I'm just I'm fine with everything that happens at this point. I really couldn't care less. Now, the next one is Dimension Shifter. One of the most interesting cards here for sure. I don't really know where to put it because if it was up to me, it would probably be in the ban section. But I'll be completely honest with you. I actually think this is one of the very few formats where Dimension Shifter doesn't bother me too much. And the reason for that is because if Malice plays Dimension Shifter, yeah, sure, it's really powerful. Of course, absolutely. But they also are not doing everything they want to do because their cards are not going to the grave, so a lot of the combos don't really work, like Link Decoder, Splash Mage, all that good stuff doesn't really work too much. Their Bystials are useless. That doesn't make the deck bad, but still, they're not doing everything. Like, if you are going first and you're playing Raziel and your opponent is going second against you, you get Shifter, you still make Detonator, which is very good. So, there's still, like, a lot of inherent options to Shifter. It's not like Shifter is being played in a shit deck like Flunderies, where the only win condition is Shifter or Featherstorm. That's not really the case. So, that's the reason why I think that this card is not as problematic as it used to be. Because the moment when I hate Shifter is when, like I said, it's played by Saki decks that their only win condition is sacking this card against you. And when you feel like you're losing more to, like, one specific card rather than, you know, the deck itself. But right now, I don't really feel like that's the case. Because of the fact that Malice is a very powerful deck, I feel like I'm losing more to Malice than I'm losing to Shifter. And therefore, I'm not really identifying this as, like, a major problem. So if this card survives this ban list, I'll understand. But clearly, if this card gets banned, I'm going to be extremely happy because that's what I want. But then again, this is a BANLIST prediction, and the most accurate thing to believe is that Shifter will either get semi-limited or limited. Maybe banned, but semi-limited is the most likely because, again, I will be pissing you off one more time. This is what happened in the OCG. Okay, Mind Master, I don't actually think will be getting unbanned. Even though it's a really shit card, I don't believe in it at all. It's not good. It's not good at all. You can special summon psychic monsters from your deck infinitely, but you have to control another psychic monster for you to be able to do that. The issue with this, because this looks really cool and all, psychic decks are trash. You can't really play this in Punk, because if you get to play the game in Punk, you're already in business, and it's not even like you want to summon more Punk monsters to begin with, because you're going neg 1 to summon another Punk. Like, what is this achieving? Absolutely nothing. It looks broken on paper, but it's not good. It's kind of like how Substitute looks broken, but then when you remove the fact that Ronin Totem is banned, well, when you take into consideration that fact, then all of a sudden, you know, you're summoning a lot of monsters that just don't really do anything, and you're not summoning them for free. You're paying life points, and you're getting rid of a monster. Well, that's for Mind Master, and for Substitute, you're just tributing a monster. But you get what I'm saying. This card looks like it's insane. It's not. I don't really see how this card is going to break the game, but I don't think it's going to get unbanned in this ban list. It's probably going to get unbanned in the next ban list, and I think the OCG is going to unban this card before us, so keep an eye out on this card, but it's definitely a card that will have to be getting unbanned one day, and the new Psychic support that we're getting in Duelist Advance really leads me to believe that we're getting there. Allure of Darkness has a very high likelihood of getting semi-limited, just because, again, the OCG had that, and it wouldn't make sense to copy them, even though I think that this card is not necessarily fantastic. But yeah, if we can limit Allure of Darkness, that would also be okay with me. I don't really care too much. But most likely, it's just gonna get untouched, honestly. I think I'm probably just gonna keep it there. In the TCG, nobody really plays this card. I mean, it used to saw play in, like, the Boardbreaker version, like the Sky Striker build. Who cares about that version, right? It's not really super popular right now. The most popular build is the Heavy Bystial version. So maybe, yeah, if you limit these cards, then people are gonna start rotating to the Sky Striker version. And then Allure of Darkness could be good. Therefore, semi-limiting it could make a lot of sense. Okay, now Brilliant Fusion, I think this card will probably getting unbanned, so we might actually see one Brilliant Fusion now, because when you think about it, this card is not currently good. Even if you can actually play it for Gemini Seraphinite and dump like a light monster, it looks insane, but it's really not. So this is an unsearchable one-of, typically in your deck. The Gemini deck currently is unplayable, so it doesn't matter if you can play this card. And you also have to play like an actual Gemini brick at the current moment, but once we get Terminal World 2, or like the equivalent in the TCG, then you can start summoning the Gemnite Seraphim or something, which is an actual good Gemnite monster, and then this card becomes really good, but then again, it loses to Detonator going second, and it's just still an unsearchable one-off for the most part, but in the Gemnite deck, it's good, even though it's still unsearchable in that deck. I'm pretty sure, right? Because it's a Gemnite Fusion. Hold on a second. No, it's Brilliant Fusion. It's not a Gemnite card. So yeah, it should not be searchable unless a card randomly states you can search any spell or trap card that mentions a Gem Knight monster from your deck to your hand, which I don't really think is the case. Usually that's it for like specific monsters or like cards, but not for like archetype cards like a Gem Knight monster, whatever. No, that shouldn't work. So yeah, Brilliant Fusion is fine to unban, honestly. It really wouldn't change the game, but it really would make sense to unban this card just to like promote the new Gem Knight cards that are going to be eventually coming out. If it's not in this ban list, it's going to be in the next one. Again, the OCG has access to this card, and it's not really doing too much. It's a great card in the deck, but Gem Knight is still dog shit, even with Brilliant Fusion and Block Dragon, so who gives a crap? Water Bearer Statue, either this is getting banned or Moulin Glacier, or both. Actually, I could really see both of these cards getting banned. It would definitely make a lot of sense, honestly. I think Moulin Glacier has a higher likelihood overall just because it's seeing play in more deck lists, whereas the Bearer Statue is a little more niche, but it's also very broken. So honestly, I'm actually trying to ban both, and I could actually see this card getting banned just because we already have the Wind Bearer Statue banned. And honestly, what's the difference at this point? If you can special summon one from the deck and special summon the other from the deck in another way, it kind of translates to being the exact same. And this card hand loops for 2. And we also have like one of its brother that also happened to go on the ban list. I think it got banned and then unbanned with an errata, or just straight up got an errata. And now the card is total garbage. It's Grand Soul, the Earth Elemental Lord. But yeah, Moulin Glacier is probably like the best one, and it's playable in a really good deck. So yeah, this card absolutely has to go. And I think it will go, honestly. I really do believe. Anyways, that grass looks greener to 2. That also does make a lot of sense because it's been at 1 for quite a while, and it has never really seen any play. So I think if Konami wants to start encouraging people to play 60 card decks, that could make sense. And also, we don't even have Fairy Tail Snow. So what's the worst thing that can happen? It looks really broken, but it's really not. Like, you're milling a bunch of cards, your opponent can Shade Shifter and then you lose, and it's not like you can play this in the 60 card Malice deck because, again, there's no Fairy Tail Snow, so you mill a bunch of Malice cards, you mill a bunch of Hand Shops. Cool story, bro, you probably went like neg 20, even though that's obviously not how it works, unless you have a Bystial in your hand. But if we limit the Bystials, then this card is not really doing too much. And if you're playing 60, you're also accepting a lot of risks in your deck. So yeah, this card, it looks broken on paper. It's really not. It's a really fair card, actually, because you're basically signing a contract with the devil when you're playing this card in your deck, stipulating that your deck is going to be worse, and in exchange, you're playing a very powerful card, but again, it has a lot of drawbacks, so I think it's really fair for a card like that Grass Looks Greener to exist. And if it was up to me, I'd actually unlimit the card. I think it's irrelevant. I really do. You don't even need like Left Arm Offering to even play this card correctly. Like, you can just play Thrust to search it out. But yeah, at 1 or 2 copies, whatever, it ends up being like just a very small difference. And again, nobody's currently playing this card. Abyss Dweller is most likely getting banned. And I think in terms of like how realistic every decision here is, Dweller probably the most realistic because it's being played in Raziel and it shuts down a lot of decks. And then Moulin Glacier is really unfair because it's being played by Mermail. And yeah, that deck is really good, actually. I'd say it's probably like the 3rd, 4th best deck, depending on how you want to see things. Ceiling level is Insanity, and it's not really interactive because when you lose a dice roll against Mermail, if you don't draw like super specific cards, it really feels like you're losing all the time. Yeah, it's a really frustrating deck to play against because you just don't back and forth with your opponent at all. But yeah, no, I absolutely could see Moulin Glacier getting like destroyed on top of like the Water Bearer Statue. And yeah, Abyss Dweller getting banned would make Mermail better, but then again, the deck also is getting a nerf. So honestly, this is a fair game. And Abyss Dweller getting banned would also be a huge buff to my Crystron deck. Check out my spreadsheet. It's in my website. You can find it at the very top of the description box below. And last but definitely not least, I do think that Gateway of the 6 is going to get semi-limited just because there's always like new 6 Samurai support all the time. Like, I think it's in Alliance Inside, we're getting a new Synchro monster, I think. I forgot. I don't want to say something stupid, but I'm pretty sure. And this deck is just not playable with only 1 Gateway. With 2 Gateway, the difference is not like that noticeable because you still have to like physically draw this and draw like 2 6 Samurai monsters that can summon themselves. It looks really easy to do. It's low-key not even that easy, and then you can also start losing to like some hand shops. It's actually funny how you can deck your opponent out under Perolia. Well, actually, not really. I don't even think... Yeah, no, the chummies, they have to shuffle back cards on the end phase anyways. Yeah, you can't even deck out. That's crazy. So your opponent is drawing a bunch of hand shops, and then he's using all of them against you. And yeah, you might not even be able to like fully hand loop your opponent. Sorry, deck out. So yeah, no, it's actually really funny. But you know, I think this deck is like fine if we semi-limited, or even unlimited gateway of the 6. Like, everything that you can do with 3 gateway, you can do with 1 anyways, so the only difference is the consistency. And seriously, when's the last time that you really had, like, a bad time against 6 Samurai? Like, obviously, like, probably every single time you lose the dice roll, you go second and you draw no hand traps, but I think this deck is actually just not really real. So yeah, I think 6 Samurai deserves, you know, to shine a little bit. And the reason, by the way, why there's no cards in the unlimited section is because a lot of, like, all the cards that are in the semi-limited section either come from the limited or the unlimited section. So there were no cards that were in the semi-limited that I'm just putting back to 3. Because I think usually what Konami wants to do is, if there is a card that's a 1 or 3, they are going to semi-limited before it goes to, like, the next section. But obviously, if a card is a 3 and it's way too broken, it might just skip completely and go to 1. Like, for example, these cards, right? They're going straight from 3 to 1. Actually, every single card here. And this is going from 0 to 1, in my opinion. But yeah, that's it for this BANLIST prediction video. You guys really let me know how you feel about it overall in the comment section. But again, tomorrow we'll have, like, the official answer and everything. So yeah, it doesn't really matter too much what we think at this point. It really changes absolutely nothing to the reality of the format and stuff. But yeah, it's just like, I'm really just doing like this video for fun and, you know, just to see what people have to say. Like, this doesn't have to be taken seriously because it's just like my predictions. Again, it's not necessarily what I want. It's just what I think will happen. Most likely a bunch of these will be wrong, but I do want to take a risk and assume that, you know, at least some of them will be correct. I think the most accurate are probably like X, Bonfire, Engraver, Tract, Dweller, Moulin Glacia, and then Chicken Game I think is very likely to get semi-limited. Grass Looks Greener probably very likely. Maybe Sharvara, maybe Dormouse, and yeah, that's it in here. Yeah, it's not going to be a lot of cards. Maybe like 10 cards max are going to be featured in the ban list. I don't think it's going to be a big one, like I said, but yeah. You guys let me know how you feel about it in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.